Hey everyone, it's Crystal Elise, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Baller Pass exclusive. On the line with me today, we are so delighted to have the one, the only, self-proclaimed real basketball wife, Mrs. Meeka Claxton. How are you, Meeka?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am so wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. One thing that I kind of want to do is really to get to know who you are in this interview, but of course, I got to give the people what they want. One of the most entertaining pieces of the show was watching the actual polo event happen in Miami Beach. There we saw the conflict between you and Tammy kind of brew there. What was it about? Had you guys had any issues before that actual event, or was that just how you were feeling that day?
I don't know if you want to call them issues, but little things do build up, and they make me ask, hey, have you been drinking? So, wanting to know where her head is at, I don't think anything's wrong with that. So, I mean, hey, she took it to another level with that. Like, she thought that was such a horrible question. So, I could see where things were going to go downhill from there.
She made a couple of comments about people who didn't like you. And last night, if anyone tuned in, guys, you saw kind of the relationship between Evelyn and Jennifer kind of unfold. Do you consider those women your friends, or would you just say that they're just business associates?
They're castmates, I guess. It definitely wasn't enough time to build any kind of friendships with anyone. The goal was really just to get to know girls while I was out there building my office. So when I said I didn't come out here to make friends, I mean, I was serious. Like, that wasn't my goal. It was just an added bonus to meet some people that Shawnee had suggested to, have drinks with and not be out there alone, for example, to say it clear, like just not to be alone. So, I definitely wouldn't consider them friends, but when I was there, when I was filming, I didn't see them as mean girls or anything like that, like you see now.
So do you think that was a product of editing, or have you really built any strong bonds with anyone on the show that we kind of don't really know about just yet?
No, I definitely think that what you see is real, but what you see is only a very, very small portion of all the relationships and just the things that happen. You can't see everything or even enough of in 1 hour a week or in 10 hours for the whole season. We shoot for 3 months. So you definitely are not going to see enough to draw at least valid judgments.
Do you think that kind of affected your perception of these women going into the show from watching the show for the first 2 seasons? Did that really make you look at people, i.e. Royce, in a different light, or do you think that she was depicted accurately?
Oh, absolutely. I think that I do think that the episodes that I was able to catch in the first 2 seasons, because I wasn't able to see all of them, but for the most part, I've been trying to catch up on them now, actually. It's funny. But for the most part, the ones that I saw, I think that, I don't think Royce was depicted, the way I wanted, the way she should have been. But, it is what it is. It's what we sign up for, and, we can't be mad at it.
Do you think that they accurately depicted you as a person?
Moving forward, anything is possible. I will say that, and, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. Now that we have that out the way, Meeka, let's talk about you as a person. Everyone, if you're just joining us, I'm on with Meeka Claxton. You can follow her on Twitter at Meeka Claxton, and that's where I went to see her profile. And there you're listed as a Queens native, a wife, mother, reality personality, philanthropist, and entrepreneur. So I'm going to kind of go in that order just so we can kind of get to know you, because I watched the show religiously.
Definitely.
And I'm like, and I still feel like I don't know who you are. So let's start with you being Queens native.
If you follow me on Twitter, I think you will get a really good understanding of who I am 100% of the time, 24/7, because that is me all the time.
What was life growing up for you, like, in Queens? Did you grow up privileged, or did you grow up working class? How was life growing up in Queens?
It was funny because my dad had a motto. My dad had a great job. It's funny, he made 6 figures back then, and, he had it. But it wasn't until I had to ask, like, why are we living here? And he said, a smart man does not need to live in Long Island. This is, a decent area. It didn't have to be, He didn't have to spend all his money on something else when he'd rather provide myself with a great education that he paid for, out of pocket. He jokes around now and says, like, my college tuition was ridiculous. I went to a private college. I went to Hofstra University where I met my husband, and we paid out of pocket, and he would rather give me things like that, So, for him, us being in the hood didn't matter because, everybody was tight. You knew everybody, and it is what it is. I grew up in Springfield. I love where I'm from. I still speak to a lot of people. I'm around there all the time when they have, like, their, community events and stuff like that. I love where I'm from. I think where I grew up shaped me tremendously as a person. It definitely taught me my hustle and my drive. I said it the other day, being from the hood doesn't mean that you have to be a hood rat, all your life. Being from a certain area like where I'm from, it just teaches you how to grind. You gotta always want better. So not just yourself, but for your family in the long run.
The next thing you have on your profile is that you're a wife. You already told us that you met your husband at Hofstra. For those of you who don't know about Hofstra, look it up. It's a very well-known university. Who is Meeka Claxton as Mrs. Claxton? Who are you as a wife?
Me as Mrs. Claxton is pretty much like the homekeeper. The guys, for most of our relationship, he was on the road. He just retired February of 2010. So it's been an adjustment period getting used to him being home and things like that. But technically for me, I'm usually there making decisions, where the kids are going to go to school, what's going to happen, paying the bills. Now he's home, so now it's more of a unit. Now we're more of partners. We're more of a partnership now, like a typical marriage. Before it's like you're a single parent, even though you have that help. So I have so much respect for single moms and single dads too. There are a lot of them. We know a few actually that are doing it on their own with no reprieve. Like at least he would come home every so often, and help me out. So I have so much respect for them. But yeah, that's me as a mother. I mean, as a wife, I'm taking care of the house while he's gone and making sure things are handled. And I take care of my husband too, just in general. I know that if you're not doing it, somebody else will.
Yes, they will. And that segues into my next question. We already know that marriage is a process, but it has got to be times 1,000 for a woman who's married to a man who's a professional athlete. What do you think is the toughest part? We know it has a lot of perks, but what do you think is the toughest part about being married to a professional athlete?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There are a lot of perks, but then at the same time, I think the toughest part is the guys being on the road so much. It's one thing. It's one thing when you're just married in general, like you said. There are problems in any marriage, but imagine arguing and then the guys are leaving. Like you really have to leave the lines of communication open. You have to be very secure. Because the guys travel way too much for you to be insecure. You have to build a level of trust. We've been through things, before we were married, and when we got married, we left all of that at the door. It's like, we're going to be honest, we have to build a level of trust there, because if we don't have it, it's just definitely not going to work, especially in this industry. So that's our big thing. Like we gotta talk it out and make sure it's out there and we're not hiding anything.
Well, one thing that we don't get an opportunity to see is you as a mom, Meeka, on the show, and I know that your daughters are younger, so we definitely understand that. So how old are your daughters, and what do you think is the greatest thing about being a mommy?
Yeah, I am sad that you guys don't get to see that part of me, because that's actually the most rewarding part of me. I love being a wife, and I love the business aspect of just me being a woman in business, but the most rewarding part of my life, hands down, is being a mommy. Like, just waking up and seeing my girls, they literally, my girls are 8 and 2. Anaya just turned 8, and in June, actually, and London will be 3 in October. And these girls have such an amazing spirit. It's uncanny. Like, they wake up, and it can be so dreary outside, and we're getting ready for school. And, as adults, we're like, oh, this weather, it's keeping us down, and they're jumping on the bed like, good morning. And it's amazing. Like, they make you smile in the morning for me and my husband. So he gets to see a lot of that now, like I said, being home. And he says it. They're at Camp Grandma and Grandpa, as I like to call it right now. They're in Florida for the summer, and that's our little vacation. But you know, they're there, and he wakes up every day. It's like, you know, where's my alarm clocks, man? You know, it's tough. You know, those girls their spirits are just amazing.
How did you balance mommy life and actually doing the actual show? How did you do that?
With my husband on my side. He took on the bulk of everything, but we did interview a lot of people to help on, you know, nights and weekends when I was gone, to help him out if he needed the help. But we also flew in my parents. His parents are already in New York, and they take on a lot with the other grandchildren and his sisters and his sister's children. So we didn't really want to bother them too much, but we flew in my parents. They helped, and like I said, for breaks we interviewed people to help them out. So we had like a team behind us, and we were just ready. So that's at a point I pretty much became invested in this when I decided to, and so I was ready. I was, you know, guns blazing. I was ready to do it. You know, we had our team together, and it was all good.